Coming up now on Animal Outtakes, a sanctuary of survivors. We introduce you to a place where decency, respect, and unconditional love leads to animals at peace. The Ladybug Farm Sanctuary is a unique safe haven, a home for farm animals with special needs. And later in the show, we're learning more about the latest Florida panther update from state officials. Plus, federal officials announced the end of the unusual mortality event affecting manatees. Hear more about what went into saving these gentle giants from starvation and why the future looks a bit brighter. This and much more straight ahead on Animal Outtakes. It could be said that the beginning of the Ladybug Farm Sanctuary was happenstance. Chris Hedstrom says her neighborhood walks in Odessa, Florida often led to offers from neighbors, people looking to surrender an animal in need. And what then began as a hobby farm slowly blossomed into a safe haven for farm animals, a place of inclusion, a place where every animal is given a chance to heal and to just exist.
So this is Max, and Max is Lily's baby, and he's about 4 weeks old. I feel like I was born to do this, that this is what God intended me to be doing. This is Ladybug Farm Sanctuary, and we are a sanctuary for abandoned, abused, injured, neglected, and special needs farm animals.
They love hanging out with each other. If any of them's alone, like they don't like being alone. And so having them all together as like one big family, even though they're not all the same, it's really great.
And this is Jasper. We got a call a few weeks ago that they found a baby goat out in the field. He was almost dead. They didn't know how to care for him, and would we take him? So we did. It was just very organically. It just happened organically. When I moved out here, my husband had passed away, and so I was like, okay, what am I going to do? And after he passed away, I'd rescued this group of dogs, and Bear was one of those puppies. He was my foster failure. And so I just loved it. I got a mom and 4 babies, and it was just, I'm like, okay, this is what I need to do. And so I moved out here, which is very rural. This is big horse country in the Tampa area. And so when I was renovating, I would walk the dogs every night. Doing so, I met all these people and all my neighbors with all these animals. And I met one of the neighbors, and he had just rescued 2 mini ponies, which one was Fig, and then Pearl, who passed away last year, was his mom. And so he said, do you want these? I can't keep them. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So then I was out walking another time, and these people had some goats. And I said, oh my God, I think I want some goats. And I just fell in love with goats. And they are just amazing animals. They're so misunderstood. And they're just like dogs. They are just as trainable, just as affectionate, just as loving and fun, and they're, just dogs with hooves is basically what they are. And so I was just doing this as a hobby farm and just, kind of my own thing. And then I kept hearing about all these other stories. Everybody's got a story. Everybody is a rescue, some more severe than others. So it just really just happened. And so I would hear about all these goats. Oh, another friend of mine had a friend who had goats, and she had just had a baby that broke its leg, and she was taking it up to UF to be euthanized. And I was like, why would they do that? And they're like, well, it's just a goat. I mean, what do you mean it's just a goat? And so then I said, well, if she'll surrender it to me, I'll take it and we'll get it taken care of. So then I found out that there's a special needs, and that goats are they're just to make money. You're not supposed to spend money on goats. They're for profit. They're livestock. And a little 2-pound baby goat has the same basic standard of care requirements as a 2,000-pound bull. And Daisy came to us as a baby from another farm. Their donkey had bit her in the back end, and she's paralyzed, and one leg is paralyzed in the back end. And so she just is super sassy and super happy, and it's still in my plans to try to change legislation. I don't know if I'll do it in my lifetime, but we do have a lot of young kid volunteers that are super smart, and several of them are wanting to become veterinarians. So I'm like, okay, I'm handing that part off to you, but in the meantime, you know, I just want to spread the word about what wonderful pets that they make, and that they're so misunderstood.
I really enjoy working with all the animals and seeing how happy they are. Even though they may look different, they really act, you know, just like any other animal, and they're still really sweet. And, you know, some of the animals here that have disabilities are my favorite ones.
And this is Elvis. And Elvis is another one of our tripods. He came to us as a baby. He was born on another farm. He got stuck in the mother, and they had to pull him so hard that his hoof came off, and they didn't have the money to fix him. My message is very widespread. I've got a big net, but I just want to also take care of the special needs ones, because they just get put down. Nobody's going to spend money on them, and they just either sell them on Craigslist and sell them for meat. And this is our critical goat right now. This is Rosie, and we are for farm animals, but we are a goat rescue. We will take in special needs, but we primarily are a goat rescue. And we hear about goats that are running in the road, down in roads in Plant City, and all these different places, and we go get them and bring them back here, and we make sure that they're healthy. And we do adopt out the majority of our healthy goats. We've adopted out probably close to 50 goats.
I love coming to work here because I think it helps the animals. The animals need somebody to help them. They can't just help themselves, and that's what I love to do. That's what I've always wanted to do, and farm animals, more so than dogs and cats, are kind of like my specialty in my heart, especially goats. And so I just like coming here and knowing that I'm making a difference in these few animals' lives.
I think it's rewarding to leave, you know, after you finished everything, and see all the animals running around, playing, chasing each other, and just knowing that you're helping them, you know, live a happy life.
I still work full time and go to the office every day. And so, you know, a lot of it is just self-funded, because every living being is born with the right to be taken care of and happy. And that's what they want. They want to be loved. And you can see it in them. They know when you're taking care of them. I mean, they all know that they're loved, and they get their treeples, and they get blankets in their in bedding and fresh water, and there's people here loving on them and petting them, and I think it probably is because they're at peace. And I guess every living thing deserves to be at peace. It is very emotional, you know, but I know that I'm making a difference in what I'm doing, and that I wouldn't change a thing. Just to see these animals healthy and know that probably, I would say 90% of these animals would not have survived. They would not be alive right now.
The Ladybug Farm Sanctuary is not open to the public. However, you can find out more about the animals through social media. They often have daily updates and interesting stories about what happens behind the scenes. And you can also offer to sponsor one of the rescued animals, earning an opportunity to meet them in person. Log on to ladybugfarmsanctuary.com for more information. Coming up next on Animal Outtakes, we're highlighting the Florida panther, an elusive animal that researchers are working to protect. We find the latest statistics and learn how we can all help this endangered species. Plus, breathing a sigh of relief, state officials are reporting the unusual mortality event affecting manatees is over. That's all coming up after the break.
Looking to get away for a few days, but nervous to leave your furry friend? Leave your worries behind. At Dante's Den, we offer safe and secure boarding options for your dog or cat. We know your pet is part of the family, so we provide a comfortable environment with experienced caregivers who offer personalized attention. We have a fully equipped medical facility, spacious accommodations, daily activities like swimming and agility, and staff is on site 24/7. Log on to dantesden.org for reservations.
Welcome back. The Florida panther is federally protected under the Endangered Species Act, and officials say only about 200 are actually left in the wild. For a little history, the only puma population east of the Mississippi River are Florida panthers. Adults are tan in color and have lighter fur on their underside. The babies are spotted, which helps them hide among shadows when they are young. The spots fade as they mature, and they have long, round tails, which helps with balance. Males are larger than females and can weigh up to 160 pounds. Boys can also measure up to 7 feet long from their nose to the tip of their tail. Panthers are a subspecies of the puma. They hunt large prey like deer and smaller animals like raccoons. These cats need a lot of space to roam. A lot of territory is needed to exist naturally. Now, one fun fact. Scientists classify cats by whether they roar or not. Lions, tigers, and leopards roar. Florida panthers do not. They are typically quiet, but sometimes chirp, peep, whistle, scream, growl, and hiss. Females will signal their readiness to mate with caterwauling, like was caught on camera recently. According to FWC, most of the breeding populations remain restricted to South Florida, below the Caloosahatchee River. The blue circles on this map show where these animals have been found in the state. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission has biologists who research these animals that help us understand Florida panther behavior, habitat requirements, and population health. Through this tracking, monitoring, and the genetic studies, they're learning about how to help recover this population for the future. It's a daily battle for the Florida panther, facing threats like habitat loss, vehicle strikes, and disease. But if you log on to myfwc.com, you can find an abundance of information about this animal. Like recent reports of births. In early March, a litter of 3 males was recorded. But on the flip side, the list is much longer of panthers found deceased. So far in 2025, 3 males and 1 female were hit and killed by vehicles. If you'd like to do your part in helping these animals survive, one way is by purchasing a Protect the Panther license plate. The fees help fund the FWCS research and management. And as always, it is illegal to harm or harass an endangered species in any way. Hopefully, if you're lucky enough, you may one day have a chance to see one of these beautiful animals in what's left of the wild here in Florida. And that brings us to another Florida treasure, the manatee. Back in 2021, we did a number of stories on the manatee and what was deemed an unusual mortality event. Manatees were dying at alarming rates. Officials confirmed there was a significant increase in manatee mortalities along the Atlantic coast, which met the criteria for a UME to be officially declared. At the time, the U.S. FWS and FWC formed an investigative team that analyzed the cause and determined that starvation due to lack of forage in the Indian River Lagoon caused this high mortality. The team developed and implemented immediate and long-term response strategies. Those included intensive manatee rescue collaboration, aquatic habitat restoration, and enhanced monitoring efforts. Federal and state funding enabled the agencies to support a thorough investigation, including aerial surveys, along with the use of satellite-linked GPS radio tags to monitor manatee movement. They also implemented a supplemental feeding trial during the winter seasons. The trial provided the manatees with additional food in a region severely impacted by the loss of seagrass. Over the course of 2 years, they supplied at least 600,000 pounds of leafy greens to manatees at the supplemental feeding sites. The partnership also worked to shift stable manatees from critical care to holding facilities to try to keep critical care space available for more urgent cases. 5 new manatee rehab partners have been added due to this event. Numerous facilities have received funding from the state of Florida to help with pool and other facility enhancements that will open up more capacity to help manatees in the future. After extensive review of all available data, officials have declared the UME closed. Researchers have not documented a manatee death from starvation linked to a lack of forage for 2 years. Elevated manatee mortality on the Atlantic coast has decreased to levels that are expected when there are no unusual causes of deaths or events. Manatees appear to be in better physical condition. This improvement is attributed to the fact that seagrass is slowly recovering in some key areas. However, environmental conditions in portions of the IRL remain a concern. Officials say the future resilience of manatees is dependent on factors such as population size, distribution, health, and habitat quality, which are all the focus of current conservation work. Stay with us. There's more animal outtakes coming up next. Dr. Pepper, it's getting to be summer.
Right.
And as I walked in here today to see you, I felt the heat rising from the asphalt. And of course, that brings my mind to the attention of the dogs.
Right.
And heat. Tell us what we should be watching for and how we should handle it.
Well, dogs don't sweat, or cats, like people do, so they can be much more susceptible to heat effects. So they basically sweat by panting, which is not as efficient maybe as having sweat glands. They got tiny little sweat glands in their feet, but nothing that really controls body temperature. So when heat indexes get over the 90s, you have to be extremely careful with exposure to the heat, especially here in Florida. And heat index is based on temperature and humidity. And they'll often say on the news, the heat index is in the 90s. That can be a real problem. I've had dogs that just been out playing hard in midday and come in with heat stroke. And so you have to be really careful when that, in the summertime when it's up in the 90s and we got 90% humidity. You need to really curtail exercise, hard exercise. Try to do it in the evening or the mornings when it's cooler. And even then, if the heat index is in the high numbers, you don't want to push that with them. Always have plenty of fresh water for them. If you do take them on walks, it's not a bad idea to have a spray bottle. They even make blankets that are humidity blankets that you can put on them that you can cool them down with. So all those things are good advice. Also watch asphalt. They can actually burn their feet on asphalt or hot surfaces. had some of that happen in real intense, walking across a long parking lot, you can actually get a burn on the feet. So you have to watch that kind of stuff, no doubt about it.
Should you want to walk your dog, and so many people do
Sure.
here in the area, what's the proper way? Should we put the dog on the grass and we walk on the asphalt, or?
Probably safer for the dog. Probably safer for the dog. Although if you're going at a pretty steady clip, they're going to lift their feet enough. You're not going to, it's not like they're standing there baking in the, but yeah, I mean, ideally, probably grass is better than asphalt. No doubt about it. And then, again, intense exercise and heat is just not wise, or good for your pet.
Anything that we should change with their food or their eating habits during the hot summer months that we had?
I don't know, sometimes they seem to have less appetite when it's really warm. I don't worry about that, but I think fresh water is always one of the biggest things you want to have available in hot weather.
And how do you feel about ice cubes in water?
Yeah, my dogs love them. They'll fight over them, so that's great. It's cooling and good source of hydration for them too. So yeah.
So in other words, we need to be mindful for them.
Oh yeah, for sure. Dogs and cats, they don't know it's 90-degree heat out there. They'll just go and, play or whatever, and, it can be tough on them. Heat is not their friend sometimes.
Right. So.
And, in Florida, sometimes we even have these Arctic breeds like Huskies and Malamutes, and, they have a pretty intense coat on them too. Black dogs may be more susceptible than white dogs because they absorb heat as far as not reflecting heat. So those are all things to consider also. Sunscreen you can use mainly on the nose or on light-skinned areas like their ears. White dogs a little more susceptible. As far as putting sunscreen on the body, their coat usually protects their body well enough. If you had a hairless breed, sunscreen on their body is probably a good idea. And there are a few hairless breeds out there. But mainly nose. Pink noses more susceptible to radiation than black-nosed dogs. And you can get skin cancer, usually tips of ears or nose on light-skinned animals. So something to watch for sure. Usually they don't ingest a lot of pool water. I mean, if you got heavy chemical or heavy salt, I probably wouldn't let them just chow down on the water,
How about in the Gulf?
Well, you got to watch the water just from the salt content, because it can, you can make their blood over-hydrated, so to speak, and it's dehydrating for the rest of the body. So, and sometimes if we got red tide or that stuff roaming around, that can be dangerous also.
Pools, of course, now a lot of pools
Right.
have salt water.
Right.
So.
Drinking a bunch of it's probably not a good idea. So.
And it just seems like they think that's their big water bowl.
Yeah. So you do have to watch that, no doubt about it. The chlorine, again, depending on how heavily chlorinated you have your pool, could be problematic, So just, let them go and drink out of the pool is probably not a great idea.
And we'll be right back.
Animal Outtakes is produced by Dante's Den Foundation, a nonprofit group dedicated to creating the best life for dogs. If you would like to learn more about Dante's Den, donate, or volunteer, visit our website, dantesden.org.
We hope you had fun and learned a thing or two along the way. And we'll be back here again next week with even more animals and some educational and engaging encounters. Until then, thanks for watching.